So good to see everybody. Thanks for coming out once again. And just wrapping up Elon, I think that game went the way we wanted it to. We scored early, we got tested, we gave up the touchdown, 14-7. We then responded the way you hope we'd respond, and was really pleased with the way we came out in the second half. And it was great to be able to play so many players. We played between 65 and 70 players in that game. I think it ended up being about 69, which for us is good. I mean, I read somewhere Clemson played 111. We don't even have 111 lockers. But we got to play a lot of players, and that'll help us down the line. So, again, those games, I think always make coaches nervous. You're glad when they're on the schedule. When you play them, you don't know the mindset of your team. And I thought our team handled that very maturely. I thought we came to play. And, again, it was great to get so many guys out there, and also great to not have to play our guys for our starters for 100 plays or 80 plays. Some of our defensive kids, played between 25 and 30 plays, which in terms of their health and their freshness going into BC is going to be really important for us. We now head into the ACC schedule, and we play a very good Boston College team who's 3-1. They just beat Rutgers a week ago. They've got a great win over Virginia Tech. And I don't know if there's a team that reflects the personality of their head coach more than Boston College. I mean, Steve Adazio is a hard-nosed, tough football coach, and this team has always, every single year, they reflect his personality. They are one of the most physical teams that every single year we play. They're on offense. Their personality is they're a downhill running team. Their O-line is aggressive. They come off the ball. Certainly, going into the season, Dillian and Etienne are the two class of the ACC in terms of running backs. And he's a 250-pound downhill load. He is tough to tackle. He can make you miss. He's got good speed. There's no doubt he's a guy that's going to be playing on Sundays. And the other running back, Bailey, is a really good player too. He's 240 pounds. And getting those guys downhill sets up everything that they do. So, again, they're a tough physical offensive line that comes off the football. They're extremely gifted at running back. They have more 6'4", 6'5", 250 tight ends, and they play them. And all these guys are fourth and fifth year players and grad students and 22 and 23 years old. And they're really good in the passing game. They get you so much to commit to the run, and then their ability to take shots in the play action game because of what you have to commit to defend their run game. It's extremely well thought out. And it's a different style, but it works really well for them, and they're effective at it. Their quarterback, Anthony Brown, we've watched him grow up. So we had him for one of his first starts in 2017. He had a career day against us a year ago, and he is athletic, has a strong arm, he's accurate, he knows the offense well. He's become a really good quarterback, and they're still skilled at receiver. They have guys that are good route runners. They got big guys that can make plays on the ball. They added a new freshman receiver, number 4, Zay Flowers, who they're going to find ways to get him the ball, whether it's speed sweeps, screens, just a very, very dynamic player. And on offense, they've been really productive, scoring over 30 points a game, a lot of yards. They've always been a very tough out for us. Defensively, they're doing an outstanding job right now of taking the football away. They lead the ACC. They probably lead the country in turnover margin. Right now they're +9. So after 4 games, that's unheard of. So they've created 10 turnovers. They don't beat themselves. They've only turned it over once on offense. And on defense, they've got experience at every level of the defense. At every level of the defense, they have a returning starter. And again, it's the personality of BC that these kids are tough, they're physical, they come off the ball, they're firm tacklers. They've always been good in the secondary. Again, last year they probably did as good a job as anybody of defending Greg Dortch and defending our passing game. So this is always a really competitive game. It's a program that we have a ton of respect for. It's always a great football game. It's become every year one of the biggest games in the ACC for us. And again, they're 1-0 in the conference. They're 3-1. And we're heading up to their place. I think it's Parents' Weekend or something up there, so I'm sure there'll be a good crowd. But we're looking to a great football game against a really good physical Boston College football team.
What is it they do in the secondary to create those turnovers? 7 interceptions this early in the season is pretty exceptional.
You know what? They're playing a little bit more zone this year. So they've always been kind of a big man free team, and they're playing a little more zone. And what that allows you to do is you have more eyes on the quarterback, and when the ball is thrown, there's more guys breaking on it. And they've always been able to rush the passer and create hurries. And I think the combination of that, they're talented in the secondary, and they've got more eyes on the quarterback now. I think lots of teams would love to play man-to-man. But the reality is when you play man, you don't get a lot of picks because people aren't looking at the quarterback. They're all looking at their man. Whereas if you're more of a zone team and your eyes are on the quarterback, you get more of a convergence on the ball. Sometimes you concede some things that are a little of the shorter variety, but you get breaks on the ball. So when you get tip passes and those types of things, there's more opportunity for picks. And they've changed their coverage scheme a little bit. But I think it's been really effective for them, and that's one of the reasons I think they have 7 interceptions so far this year.
Dave, what's going to be the difference, or what do you hope is the difference with this team compared to the 16 and 17 teams that started 4-0 and then lost that 15?
I mean, we have to wait and see. I mean, I shared that with our football team the other day, that this is nice, but we've been here before. How do we handle it in 16? How do we handle it in 17? How can we be different? How can we be better? What can we do better? And I think the fact that we've been in this position before will help us. I also think that this team is built a little bit differently than those teams. I think in 16, you went in every game saying, boy, you got to hold them to 20 or you're in trouble. And I think in 17, we felt if we didn't score 40, we were in trouble. I do feel this team is capable of doing either of those things. I think this is, and I said this at the beginning of the year, I think this is the best balance we've had here between offense and defense. That I think we can win a 20-17 game or a 17-10 game, and I think we can win a 45-42 game. So that's one thing I feel better about, but now that we get into ACC play, I mean, every single one of these games is tough, and it starts this week. I mean, BC's a very good football team, and what they do is different. And if you don't show up to play against BC, I mean, they're going to get after you, and that's one thing that Steve's teams have always done. They always play with that physical nature, and if you ever show up and play BC and you think you're ready, you're gonna get embarrassed. So they're again a good football team, and I think our team is a little bit more mature this year. I think we're a little older. We've got more kids that are in their 4th and 5th year, and there's a part of me that thinks the 16 and 17 teams were kind of happy to be 4-0. I don't want to say they're satisfied, but that was like an accomplishment. I don't feel with this football team they feel they've accomplished anything yet.
You mentioned just how competitive this series has been. What do you make of the fact that the road teams won 5 straight games ahead?
Yeah, just sometimes it happens. I mean, I think really, if you look at all the years, really every year, probably the better team probably won. They had last year they were 7-5 and we were 6-6, and they were probably a little better than us. I think in 17 we were probably a little better than them. So I think the better teams won. It just, has so happened that the better team was on the road that year. So, I think the last 2 years, if you look at the whole season, probably the better team won. So, but it's both early in the years. I don't know what the better team is. I hope it's us, but we know we're playing a really good football team.
A.J. Dillon had his best game of 2018 here. What's the second last year?
Yeah, everybody on their roster had their best game here. Quarterback had his best game. A.J. Dillon had his best game. The receivers ran past us. I mean, they didn't even have to get to the red zone to score last year. They had 6 explosive touchdowns. And, I'm sure if those guys are watching the film, they're looking forward to playing us again. So, I mean, the
Defense
first...
is taking that personally?
Well, there's a lot of things we didn't defend. I mean, if you watch last year's film, I don't know how anybody on defense, anybody on our football team can feel good about how we played. I mean, the third play of the game, they run a little counter and, Dillon goes for 42 or 48 yards. And then when they run a double move for a post, and then, they run a wheel route off of play action. And, we get back in the game and then they run by us and score a touchdown. So, like I said, they scored 6 touchdowns last year and weren't in the red zone once. So they made explosive plays, they ran the ball, they pretty much did whatever they wanted a year ago.
Do you think the team might have been surprised at their explosiveness last year? You see this big physical offensive line, those big powerful backs. Do you think that might have contributed to?
No, we knew they were dangerous going into the game. And, what happens with a team like BC is, they've got A.J. Dillon, they've got David Bailey, they've got a big physical offensive line. And what happens is at times you can get so geared up to stop the run that you don't put your eyes in the right place, and the next thing you know, there's guys running down the field uncovered. And they do a really good job with their play action game. I mean, they know, they get in formations and they figure out who has the run pass dilemmas. And the second you get a little over aggressive or anxious, they're going to run some type of route down the chute or get into a formation that you're cheating against. And all of a sudden, you've got 4 verticals or a 6'5" tight end going right down the middle of the field. And their tight ends are really good blockers, but they're also very athletic. And when you're 6'5" and 250 and you can run, that creates a whole nother layer to the passing game in terms of working the middle of the field. So whether it's their play action game, their boot game, they've got a really good naked series, and they've got a mobile quarterback who can run the ball that you have to account for. I mean, they've been a very good offensive team for the last few years. I mean, Dillon's rushed for over 3,000 yards. He has almost 500 yards already this year. He had 1,500 a year ago. He didn't start against us in 17. He kind of came in the game late, and then after that, he became their feature back. And ever since then, I mean, they've been a different football team.
Well, injuries kind of helped him get some early opportunities. Just looking at Kenneth Walker, really since he first got here, did you expect him to be this explosive, this fast in games?
You know what? We took 2 tailbacks last year, and we were excited both about Kenneth and Kendrell Flowers. And our hope was that one of them would get ready to play and we could redshirt the other one. And we really didn't know. We were very excited about Kendrell and Kenneth. Kendrell had some injuries in camp. And with Cade going down, that kind of gave Kenneth an opportunity, and he's certainly made the most of it.
How good are how much of these last few weeks helped Kendall Hinton in terms of getting him back to 100%? Is he close to 100%?
Yeah, he's close to 100. I mean, we're very optimistic that he'll play this week. So he practiced today, and he looked good. So that's getting him back will be a big boost.
What's the key to keeping Jamie going at the rate he's been going?
I think you just keep pushing him and making sure he's not satisfied. That it's the nature of football. There's certain things we've done these first 4 weeks, and now those things are on film. And now certain things we're doing well are going to get taken away from us. And now can we still execute the other aspects of the offense that we're going to have to execute? So we've hit a lot of deep balls to Scotty and Sage. Now we're going against every single week really good ACC corners. So the margin of error against a Rice or an Elon is a lot more than it is against a BC or a Clemson or a Florida State. It's just, now that you're in conference play, everything gets cranked up a notch. So Jamie has played really well. We expect him to continue to play well. But again, we've shown things on film after 4 weeks. I think that at the beginning of the season, there's a freshness to what you're doing. And even though we probably look like we did a year ago, we've made some tweaks and some changes that we've now run for 4 weeks. So now there's a body of work on film that BC is saying, well, hey, it's the same offense, but they're really doing more of this year and less of this. And now, there's 300 reps on film of what we're doing. So they're going to have answers. And then when they have their answers, we've got to have our counterpunch, and then you've got to be able to execute that counterpunch. It's one thing to say, well, if they're going to do this, we're going to do this. You better be able to do both aspects of it well. And that's where, instead of getting to his second progression, he may need to get to his third or his fourth. So, I think the goal of every defense is to try to, make you play left-handed. And there's certain things that we've done well. BC is going to say, well, we've got to stop these things, and are we good enough to execute the other aspects of our offense that we're going to have to execute?
Switching gears a little bit, the specialists go through practice where they have a couple team periods and then they're kind of off on their own. When you meet with them after practice, are you meeting with them to talk about what they've done throughout the whole practice?
No, we talk life.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's, the specialists, the specialists, they're in their own world. And Wayne Lindenberg is our tight ends coach. So at the end of practice, I get the team together and make announcements, and everyone sees their position coach. Well, I don't have a position. And the specialists, their coach, Coach Lindenberg, is the tight end. So this has very much been a marriage of convenience. I had nobody to meet with. They had nobody to meet with. Specialists come see me, and we talk about anything from whatever show they're streaming to what homework they got to get done that day, or who they had dinner with this weekend, or what restaurant they went to, or how they're going to solve the global warming crisis in the next 5 years. All of those things have come up. Everything is free game.
Any interesting theories?
Oh, we got a lot of theories. A lot of theories. We solve a lot of problems of the world during those 5 minutes after practice. The one thing I don't do is I don't tell them how to kick it or punt it. Okay?
That's the conversation.
I do.
You do.
Yeah. And sometimes, though, Don Maggio, Dayton Dimmel, Skiba, those guys have been here a while, so they kind of, they know how to direct it in different ways.
It's a pretty
So-
close-knit group, isn't it?
It's awesome. Those guys are great. The great thing about our specialists is a lot of times, the specialists, it's really a unique skill set. So you have all these things in football you got to do, whether it's, ball security drills, blocking, tackling. And for the most part, every other football player has to do a lot of those things. The specialists, there's this one thing they've got to do, and they've got to do it really well. So their mindset and how they prepare and how they practice is a lot of ways maybe more like a golfer than a typical football player. But so many times that you'll have specialists that are loners because it's almost an individual skill. And the great thing about our specialists are these guys are football players that just happen to punt, kick, and snap. They're not punters, kickers, snappers who play football. They're football players. They're tough kids. They're good athletes. Dayton Dimmel covers punts well. Don Maggio is a really good athlete. Skiba's a neat kid. It's a great group. It really is. So I enjoy them, and like I said, it's a marriage of convenience, but it works.
Have you seen that marriage of convenience and the times that you have? Has that been pretty important for Skiba, having go all the way back to last year and not getting on the field for the Notre Dame field goal?
Yeah, I think any time that you have a personal relationship with players, it allows you to coach them harder. Because they know that the coaching or the getting on them it comes from, there's already a relationship established. Okay, we already have common goals and we're on the same page, and like any other position on the team, there's expectations. And if they do the things they're supposed to do, how they're supposed to do them, there's a reward for it. And when they don't do what they're supposed to do, they're going to get coached like every other position. But you can get on them and it doesn't ruin or break the relationship because the relationship is too strong. That's just part of football. It's an emotional game, and there's expectations we have our players, whether it's on the field, off the field, socially, and they know in any of those areas if they don't live up to it, they're going to hear about it. But those things help build the relationship. It doesn't break it. All right, let's eat.